Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. And today I'm going to be talking about the 2024 presidential election and the latest results out of every single individual state poll. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new, and make sure to follow the Twitter and join the Discord in the description down below. And so, guys, pretty much the first state we're going to be looking at is the state of Alabama. If we look at the state, Donald Trump's ahead by 20 points according to this latest poll. He was able to win it by about 25 points, and we do know that the aggregate has underestimated Trump in the state before. He was ahead by 19 points here in 2020, ended up winning it by 25, and right now he is currently up in this state in the latest poll by 20 points, so he will more than likely end up winning it by a similar margin that he did in the 2020 election. The next state we're going to be looking at is the state of Alaska, where Donald Trump in the latest poll enjoys a 23-point lead with third-party voters included. So that is a massive lead compared to 2020. He actually only won it by 10.1% in the 2020 presidential election. And right now, he's currently still winning it by a safe margin, but now he's winning it by 23 points instead of only 10, which is a big difference and will definitely influence the popular vote and will also kind of leave a mandate on the state. I think at this point, Mary Patola would probably not be able to hold on in the general election just because the ticket splitting would just be too grave for that to even occur. And the next state we're going to be looking at in the latest poll is Arizona. And what's interesting is that the latest poll actually has Biden up one with Kennedy in the poll. Biden's actually up by one in the state, which puts the state in the lean Democratic column. Now, all the other polls currently have the state up, but I do have to go based off the latest poll. The aggregate even has Trump up. So even though I do expect Trump to win, the latest poll does show Biden up by a single point. And that's what we're going to fill in the electoral map. However, what's actually quite funny is that if you look at Arizona, it did vote Democrat in 2020 due to the fact that Maricopa County shifted quite a bit to the left. This is the biggest county, not necessarily the biggest county in size, but the biggest county in population in all of Arizona. It's one of the most fastest growing counties in the entire nation, and so there's a huge population boom in that area, and you're starting to see shifts occur where the state is becoming more democratic because of how left-leaning Maricopa has actually become. The next state we're going to be looking at is the state of Arkansas, where Trump enjoys a very big victory. He won the state by 27 points, currently leading by 32 points in the latest poll, which definitely puts Donald Trump in the advantage in the state as of right now. If we go to the next state, which is the state of California, Biden in the latest polls up by 20 points with third parties. You could see, Trump's at 28, Biden's at 48, Kennedy's at 12, and the other candidates take the rest. The state did vote for Biden by around almost 30 points, so it would be around a 9-point decrease from 2020 for Biden, showing signs of weakness amongst, Hispanic, Asian, and African American demographics. And even some white voters, in a sense, there would be struggling demographics there if that was the case. If we go to the next state, the state of Colorado, Biden is up by 10 points in the latest poll. He ended up winning the state by 13.5 after the state only barely voted by 5 points for Clinton. You'd see that there is a massive third party influence in the state, which ended up shifting the state massively to the right that cycle. But Colorado ended up voting to the right of New Mexico for the first time in 2020, and I expect the state to trend more Democrat, so maybe it being plus 10 Biden wouldn't be that unrealistic. However, I do think it's going to fall under 10, but for now the latest poll does have Biden winning the state by over 10 points. Connecticut is a state that Biden won fairly easily. He was able to win it by about 20 points in the last election. The latest poll only has Biden up by 9 points in the latest poll, and so that would put the state in the likely Democratic column for this cycle. The next state's going to be Delaware. Now, even though we don't have a new poll out of the state, we could get Biden's percentage and Trump's percentage and subtract it to kind of get a base poll, which would be a D plus 10, and that would put the state in the safe Democratic column. Biden was able to win it by 19 points in 2020. And so it only being plus 10 would kind of show significant shifts within the Northeast as a whole. And that puts the state in the safe Democratic column ever so slightly. The District of Columbia, even though there's no new polling data out of there, based out of that result and the previous result, as well as the couple past elections of it voting increasingly Democratic, I'm going to be putting it in the safe Democrat category once again. And if we go to Florida, which is a major swing state, you're going to see Trump is up in the aggregate by 9.5%. The latest poll has Trump up 9 points with Kennedy included within the poll. And that actually puts Donald Trump in a likely category to beat the incumbent president in the state of Florida, gathering its major 30 electoral votes that Trump needs in order to win the presidency. If we go ahead and look at Georgia, Trump is up in the aggregate by 5.5%. As of right now, the latest poll has Trump up by 6, with third-party voters included, with him at 45% and Biden at 39%. That puts the state in the likely Democratic column. And what's funny is that in 2016, it actually did vote likely Democrat here, or excuse me, likely Republican here, due to lower African American turnout with, Atlanta voters specifically for Clinton. However, in 2020, Biden was able to capitalize off of high African American turnout and was actually able to win the state by the hair of his, basically by the skin of his teeth pretty much. And so that puts the state in the likely Republican column. Since Biden's approval rating has fallen, I wouldn't be surprised if he was losing the state of Georgia. If we go ahead and look at the state of Hawaii, he's actually up by 8 percentage points only, with third-party voters included. So that actually puts Hawaii more competitive than Colorado, which is really interesting. And the reason why that's interesting is because it voted for Biden by 29.5%. However, due to, the whole Maui response from Biden, I would assume that a lot of voters have been pretty turned off there. And since it's a very small population, the state could be more elastic than people realize. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the state's actually within single digits. That wouldn't necessarily surprise me if that was the case. But the latest poll currently has Biden winning by about 8 points as of right now. The next state would be the state of Idaho, where Trump enjoys a 29-point lead. Donald Trump ended up winning the state by around that same margin in 2020, so I'd expect him to probably outperform polling and doing a little bit better. Illinois, what's actually interesting is that the latest poll has Biden up 10. Biden won it by 17 points in 2020, so it would be a reduction in Biden's margin, even though the classification does not change from the previous cycle. And that's mostly due to African American voters being upset with, the whole illegal immigration thing, cost of living, and many other issues. If we go to the state of Indiana, Trump is up here by a comfortable 21 percentage points, another deep Republican state going back to Trump. If we look at Iowa, Donald Trump is ahead in the latest poll by 15 percentage points from a poll that was conducted by the Des Moines Register, media.com. And, Trump only won the state by 8.2%. So for him to be polling at double that margin, plus the polling error usually tends to be like a 6 to 7 point miss, Donald Trump could win the state upwards of 22 points, which would be huge for the former president. But as of right now, we're going to be putting it at plus 15. Kansas, Donald Trump is up by 16. This was a state that fell under 15 points in 2020 ever so slightly. However, it is currently seemingly going back to the Republican Party as Biden's popularity is lower than ever. Donald Trump, same thing in Kentucky. He's performing pretty strong there. Louisiana is roughly the same thing. These states, basically very historically Democratic backgrounds. However, I would suspect that they'd end up voting safe red again, and I think the polls here are pretty accurate. Now, the next state's going to be Maine, where Donald Trump enjoys a 20-point lead in Maine's second. He enjoys an 8-point lead in Maine's first, and a 6-point lead in the latest poll in the state, which puts the state in the likely category for the former president, which would be a huge revelation because Biden won it by 9 points in 2020. So if Donald Trump is actually winning the state by 6 points, it would be almost an exact flip from what would have happened 4 years prior. And we got to keep going here. We'll see that Maryland, Biden's up 17 points. It's another deep Democratic state, but the fact that he's only up 17 points with third-party votes and he won it by 33 in 2020 is not a good sign for the Biden campaign whatsoever, and could even hurt Democrats on the national level there. The latest poll with third-party voters actually has Biden up 30 points with this, the national electorate in Massachusetts. He's up by 30 points, so he's probably not going to end up having a problem there. Michigan is interesting because Donald Trump's actually ahead by a point in the state with third-party votes actually included as of right now, so that puts the state in the lean Republican column for the former president as of right now. Donald Trump, lost the state by 2.8%, mostly due to the coronavirus, Biden bailing out the EV, companies there, and so more than likely, Trump is probably going to prevail in the state. I think he is personally, and I think this poll is pretty accurate from what I'm estimating the election is going to be. Minnesota is a state where Donald Trump's actually going to end up doing a little bit better than in Michigan. He only wins Michigan by 1, but he's up in Minnesota by 3. This state voted Democratic ever since 1972, where Nixon was able to win it by just merely 5 points on like a plus 20 Republican national environment. And ever since then, the state has been reliably Democratic the last couple cycles. It did end up getting close. In 2000, it was within a couple points, and then it finally got within 5 points in 2016 with a large third-party vote share, but went back to being a 7-point victory for Biden as of right now in 2020. And so the poll reflects Donald Trump flipping back the state by a pretty convincing amount. And if we look at Mississippi, Trump is up by 18 points as of right now. We're going to keep going here. If we go to Missouri, we're going to see Trump is up by 18 points, another, safe Republican state. And if we look at Montana, same thing. Trump is up by 20 points with basically third-party voters. Nebraska is interesting because Donald Trump's up in the state by 23, and that would probably end up putting Nebraska's first and Nebraska's third safe, but Nebraska's second actually ends up voting a lean Republican here. It is Trump plus 3 with third-party, candidates included. And what's interesting is that Biden won this district by 6.6 percentage points. However, ever since they kind of redistricted it to be more Republican, and Biden's approval rating nationwide being absolutely in the gutter, even below 40%, that's more than likely going to shift Nebraska's second into Trump's column. If we keep going to the state of Nevada, Trump in the latest polls up by 5 points with third-party voters. Hispanic shifts may explain the fact as to why there is such a big lead in the polling data. If we go ahead and look at New Hampshire, the latest poll actually has Biden up by 3 from January, and so they do actually really need to conduct new polls out of New Hampshire, because I'd suspect they'd probably be a little bit closer than people are insinuating. And if we look at New Jersey, Biden is up only 5 points with third-party votes included, and so that puts him in the likely category as well. The state of New Mexico is a state where Biden's ahead by 8 points, and so it doesn't seem like it's going to be a narrow victory for the former president as of right now. New York is a state where the polling's gotten better, but not under 10. Biden in the latest poll is ahead by 10 points in Siena College as of right now. And so if we keep looking at this, we're seeing that we're getting a little bit closer and closer. Trump is slowly making inroads here. North Carolina, Donald Trump is ahead by 5 points in North Carolina. He won it by 1.3% in 2020. And so we're going to be seeing a lot bigger shifts occur, because of this. And we're going to see, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida shift massively to the right. Trump is going to be able to win the Sun Belt besides Arizona pretty easily in this scenario, which is perfect for his electoral college victory nonetheless. And if we keep going here, we're going to see North Dakota is a safe Trump state, plus 37 in the polling. Ohio, but Trump's actually up by 11 points here, so he's actually winning that pretty comfortably in the latest poll. And if we actually look over here and we go to Oklahoma, we're going to see Donald Trump is up by a massive amount in Oklahoma, Donald Trump is, performing exceptionally well. Oregon, Biden's up by 11 points in Oregon. So that actually puts it in the safe Democratic column. And this was a new poll out of April 16th to the 23rd. So this was recent. It's not an old poll, it's a pretty recent poll for him to be, kind of pulling off this kind of work where, Biden's only within, almost within, single digits of losing the state. If we look at Pennsylvania, Trump in the latest poll is actually up by 5 points according to Fabrizio, with Stein and Oliver included as third-party candidates, and when you include Kennedy and Emerson College, Trump's up by 4. But in the philosophy of the video, Trump ends up winning Pennsylvania by 5 percentage points according to the latest model. And if we keep going here, we're going to see Rhode Island. Biden is up 17 points in Rhode Island as of right now. If we go to South Carolina, Donald Trump is up here by 14 points in the latest poll, which is still a safe margin, and he tends to get basically underestimated on all the polling aggregates, so I'd suspect him to probably end up doing a lot better there. He probably ends up winning it close to 20 at the end of the day. And if we keep going, we're going to see South Dakota. Trump is up by 29 points in the latest poll as of right now. And so the next state we're going to be looking at is the state of Tennessee. Trump in the latest polls up by 23 points with Kennedy included. That puts the state in the safe Republican column as of right now. If we go to the state of Texas, Donald Trump in the latest polls up by 8 percentage points according to YouGov, which is not the most friendly Trump pollster, and you'll see Trump is already cracking 276 electoral college votes right out the gate. And if we go over here, we're going to see once again, Utah, Donald Trump is up by 24 points with third-party votes included. So I wasn't really, suspecting Trump to end up losing the state or within, being within single digits. I kind of always expected it to be a safe Republican state. Vermont in the latest poll is Biden plus 31. That is already filled in. If we look at Virginia, Biden is up by 4 in the latest poll. Biden is currently struggling with his own base, and Virginia polls are reflecting that quite a bit, to the point where even with third-party votes, Biden's only up by 1%, in the state of Virginia, which is very, very remarkable. And so that is that for that state. And that leaves us only with a couple of states left. We're going to have, Washington. But before we go there, I actually want to fill this out first. If you look at this, to Wisconsin, Biden plus 1 is the latest poll from Quinnipiac with third-party voters. That puts the state in the lean column. And actually, Pennsylvania, we actually went over it already. It was already likely Republican. But Wisconsin ends up voting lean Democrat. The state did vote Democrat in 2020. However, I can't see Biden holding on to it with all the losses he's made. Wyoming is obviously going to go safe red. It's been a safe red state ever since, basically since 1992, when Bush barely won it by only 5 points. That was the last time it was relatively competitive. All the other times, Donald, basically the Republican has swept the Democrat in the state of Wyoming. And so that puts the state in the safe column. And the final state's going to be Washington, where the latest poll, for whatever reason, has Donald Trump winning the state by 5 points with third-party voters, which sounds absolutely ridiculous. And that's why I'm going to have to put it in the map. Donald Trump wins Washington by a likely margin while losing Oregon by a safe margin. It's kind of interesting to see how that works out in all the polling data. And so this is the final electoral college map from this video. Donald Trump's at 316 electoral votes to Biden's 222, even though the map does look slightly different, with some of the states kind of altering. The result, range kind of roughly stays the same. This is kind of where I see Donald Trump winning the electoral college by. And so if you guys did enjoy this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to go ahead and follow the Twitter and join the Discord in the description down below. And I will see you guys very, very soon.